afternoon, everyone. Prime Minister Philip Davis, Deputy Prime Minister Mr. I. Chester Cooper, Education Minister the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, National Security Minister the Honorable Wayne Munro, Minister for Economic Affairs Mr. Michael Halkitis, special guests, members of the press, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. We've called this press conference this afternoon to announce plans and give details of the government's latest thrust in the fight against crime. You would have been familiarized earlier this year with the government's three-tier assault on crime. That is the strategy that has been dubbed Clear, Hold, and Build. We will hear from the ministers of government on this strategy and what progress has been made so far and the steps that are being taken to ensure that this strategy takes hold and has an effect on the communities in the Bahamas, with the ultimate aim, of course, of eradicating crime in our country. We will begin with comments from Prime Minister Davis, followed by remarks by the National Security Minister, the Education Minister, and the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Clayton Fernando. Please welcome Prime Minister Davis.
Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, over the course of this year, I've spoken on several occasions about the work of our Gang, Crime and Justice Task Force, which is part of this administration's whole of government approach to fighting crime. I'm pleased to report that our efforts are having a degree of success. Year on year, in most categories, the level of crime is down. In his presentation, the Commissioner will present the data which illustrates this. That said, incidents of murder remain too high. They are still, by and large, gang-related, and the number of young men in our country who are killing and being killed is a continuing blight on our national development. Our 5 pillars strategy forms the backbone of our approach: prevention, policing, prosecution, punishment, and rehabilitation. Our initiatives in respect of prevention, punishment, and rehabilitation are ongoing. In respect to our policing and prosecutorial efforts, this year we have passed a number of significant legislative measures: the Bail Amendment Act, the Anti-Gang Act, the Trial by Judge Alone Act, and the National Crime Intelligence Agency Act, which have introduced harsher penalties for some offenses, streamlined the administration of bail, and introduced greater efficiencies in the court system. Minister Munro will provide an update on some of the progress to date. Today, we are focused on a police-led initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, we are poised to begin the next phase of our strategy by intensifying our focus on specific areas. And this is in all our communities here on New Providence. We begin this Monday. We will be ramping up our Clear, Hold, Build strategy, and we will begin in Engliston to move to other areas of our communities here in New Providence. You know, the Engliston neighborhood was chosen by the Gang, Crime and Task Force as the first neighborhood to benefit from this initiative. The decision was based on several factors: evidence provided by the Royal Bahamas Police Force on the increase of gang activity, combined with a strong urban renewal presence, community efforts, and the positive work of many local pastors in that area. In a few minutes, Minister Hannah Martin will say more about Engliston. The Clear and Hold phase, which starts on Monday, aims to significantly disrupt and ultimately remove those people and places connected to criminality. And that is persons connected to and places connected to criminality. The Clear phase relies heavily on the police to take the lead to disrupt gang activity. This includes the targeting of gang leaders and members, the removal of derelict vehicles, the cleaning up of known stash houses, and the identification and demolition of abandoned buildings. During this phase, the police will operate a zero-tolerance policy towards criminal activity. They will proactively investigate gang offenses and seek to identify and seize criminal assets. Although the police are operationally in charge of this phase, other ministries and agencies will be called upon to provide support. For example, to remove vehicles and identify the owners of abandoned buildings and vacant lots. Commissioner Fernando will provide more details about this operation. During the whole phase, the police will continue with their saturation patrols to prevent other criminal activity moving into the neighborhood after the clear phase. Ministry of Health will engage with people with drug dependencies to provide addiction and mental health support. And this is important because we believe that a lot of our challenges relate to the way we treat persons with mental health issues and trying to find a way to bring them back to normality. The intention here is not to criminalize homeless people or local drug users, but rather offer support and compassion to turn their lives around. With this group, the aim is to implement solutions, not to inflict punishment. The clear and whole phases will last for 3 to 4 weeks, after which the build phase will begin. The aim is to improve the community in a sustainable manner. This is how we will tackle the root causes of crime and increase pride in the neighborhood. We will be detailing specific initiatives as the plan moves forward. The Ministry of Works will undertake repairs in Engliston, and urban renewal will continue to support and help to build relationships across the neighborhood. In a similar way that a whole of government effort will be applied, we need a whole of society effort in the communities. We will work with the churches, charities, schools, and other NGOs already active in the area who are already doing excellent work. Ultimately, it is the community which has a critical, ongoing role to play in reducing the influence and control of gangs. Once the clear, whole, build intensive in Engliston is completed, as I indicated, the operation will move to another area, which will be identified very soon, shortly before the completion in Engliston. So, ladies and gentlemen, this strategy has been implemented in several countries with very positive results. So we look forward to experiencing a positive result here, and in the short term, making life better for all residents in New Providence. But even as we focus today on this specific initiative, as we have not lost sight of the fact that so many of our young people, particularly young men, are being killed on the streets or are caught up in a cycle of crime and violence that severely limits their lives and their life chances. Successful programs like the Second Chance program and the HIGH program, run by the Ministries of Education, Health and Social Services, that specifically target at-risk young people, will continue to be expanded. But these programs have to be supported by wider cultural change. We have to check the glorification of violence that we see in some of the videos circulating on social media. We have to find ways to resolve our differences without resorting to physical force or using weapons. We need all sections of the community to play their part, not just in what we are doing over the next few weeks, but over the next several years and beyond. I want to thank you for listening to me, and I invite the Minister of National Security to share some light on the progress we've been making in respect to our strategies. Minister Monroe.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Fellow Bahamians, as the Prime Minister has indicated, this government has articulated its crime strategy in January. Steps have been ongoing. You'd have heard me in the House of Assembly relate statistics that the Commissioner will be more fulsome in delivering, that crime figures are down, except for murder. You've also heard my view which is shared by the Prime Minister, that they are still too high. There are successes, and we must celebrate our successes. To respond directly to the crime strategy, my ministry is concerned with prevention, rehabilitation, and in support of the police for policing. In this whole of government effort, you would have seen over the course of the year that there have been a number of steps in prevention that have been put forward. The National Youth Guard has been expanded. This is a new institution. Not only do they engage with young Bahamians, but they now assist in other programs. And so they assist in the HYPE program because they are right-thinking young Bahamians as we seek to prevent young primary school students from going astray. They assist in Let's Swim Bahamas, a program run by Andy and Nancy Knowles with the assistance of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. They are slated to assist as we build out more prevention programs. And I'd just like to let you know some of what is happening. Because you have too much bad news, let me give you some good news, eh? The police force has a LEAP program, Law Enforcement Empowerment and Preparedness Program. They have a STAND program, Stand Together Against Negative Decision program. They have a STEP program, Students Towards Ethical and Positive Standards. Urban Renewal has a GANG program, God's Anointed New Generation. They have a PAT program, Parents Assistance Team, and a Community Rejuvenation program. There's a Building and Youth Empowerment in Bullocks Harbor, the Berry Islands. And as you know, they provide school resource officers to the Ministry of Education that are more than police officers in schools. They engage with young Bahamians to seek to steer them in the correct path and to be aware of what is happening. You may not know that the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the Bahamas Department of Corrections runs the HYPE program that the Prime Minister has indicated is being expanded. It engages with young primary school students in grade 6. We have seen 15-year-old murderers. It is never too young to intervene. You may have seen, you may not know, that we now have a male juvenile detention center in B-Docks to assist with young people not engaging with adult prisoners. We have a psychiatric unit for the first time that engages with persons in the facility, 98% of whom will be released from the facility. There are technical and vocational programs ongoing currently. There's a Grow Your Child program where young children are permitted to interact with their parents in the institution so that we may break this generational curse of sons following their fathers into the facility. We currently have a number of fathers and sons incarcerated together. The institution is engaging the private sector in providing employment for inmates about to be released and training so that they may be reintroduced into society and be meaningful. Some of them will be coming to Angliston. Some of them will be coming to a neighborhood near you. That is an ongoing program. It teaches the residents responsibility, They are paid minimum wage, and they are deducted to pay for the cost of the state housing and feeding them as we reintegrate them. The actual figures of what is happening in courts, because we should really focus on prevention and rehabilitation, but I know you're interested in the statistics on the courts, so let me let you have them. The Royal Bahamas Police Force remains resolute in its mission to protect the Bahamian people and have made significant strides in reducing crime and improving public safety. Thus far in this year, the force has arrested 13,551 individuals for a range of offenses across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This figure represents an 8% increase over the same period in 2023, when 12,546 persons were arrested. Among those arrested, 9,347 were formally charged and brought before the court, reflecting a 60% change rate for major and minor crime. And this marks a 48% increase compared to the previous year, when 6,333 persons were charged. Additionally, there were 3,669 court returns from the magistrates' courts, including 2,605 convictions. 14 cases were discharged due to the defendant's death. 74 cases resulted in acquittals at the end of the trial. 562 cases were discharged by the court, and 413 cases were withdrawn by the virtual complainants. There are traffic statistics, but in the interest of time and for what we hear about, the launch of the Phase 1, and I would say Phase 1 in Angliston. I and the Ministry of National Security continue to thank our partners in the religious community, in civil society, who work with us on our prevention program. We continue to ask members of the public in Angliston, in Freetown, all over the Bahamas, let's stop sitting down and asking what someone else is doing, and let's get to doing what we can do. That is what the Prime Minister means by the whole of society effort. Angliston will have the first chance out of the gate. The task force has commissioned a research study so that we can demonstrate by measurable metrics what comes from these efforts. And before I take my seat and call on the Commissioner of Police, my colleague, the Minister of Education, I'd like to just have you ponder this. We are the two co-chairs of the Anti-Gang and Crime Task Force put together by the Prime Minister. I want us all to consider that that tells us, and I'll close with Bob Marley if I might, Prime Minister. Bob Marley says, in an abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. And we all know that knowledge is power. And so it is fitting that the Minister of Education, the senior minister in the task force, is leading this charge to re-educate us as to how we're to approach this. And with this, I'd call on my senior, Minister Hannah Martin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I won't be long, just a few words in pursuance and in furtherance of what we've heard so far. I am a co-chair in this committee. We've been meeting regularly, weekly almost, for how long? A year? Almost a year. Looking fundamentally at the issue of crime in this country. My presence there in education is because we are noting that a lot of what we are seeing with our children begins, in some instances, and which was a shock to me, in primary school. And so in our efforts now to track what is happening with young people who are disruptive on campuses, we are seeking interventions to address the issues as we see them from that grouping. And so there are a number of strategies. It's very complex. It's not one-dimensional. And so that is why the approaches you are seeing and you will see coming out of this effort is multi-dimensional, and in an effort to effect true change. So I just wanted to say that as a member of Parliament for Angliston, that it is a wonderful community. It's historic in many ways and has produced and continues to produce outstanding citizens. And it's my honor and privilege to represent the fine people of Angliston. Families and thousands of children and young people are resident there. And we are obliged to do all that we can to ensure that they thrive, succeed, and excel. We've had some recent events of homicides. And when this happens, this creates trauma in a community. If you hear the gunshot, if it's someone you know, if it's your child, it creates trauma. And it creates grief that does not go away overnight, not even after the passage of years. It creates pain of loss, and frankly, from my point of view, it's sickening. That's how I feel. So we want to support efforts that seek to address, in particular, illegal firearms and associated activities in a community like Angliston. And what we are talking about today is not simply police action, but fundamental policies to affect true change. They are environmental, as you've heard from the Prime Minister, dealing with overgrown lots, which affect quality of life, but they also store weapons, you can potentially in these areas, to removal of accumulated debris, deal with abandoned buildings that are chronic in one or two areas, and we can't seem to get on top of it, removing derelict vehicles, which harbor rodents, and some people do some other things that are unsavory in those vehicles. So this program will seek to enhance qualitatively the state of communities and allow for peaceful, prosperous environments. And it also will have associated programs, skills training, job opportunities. It'll support for full human development, including counseling and things of that nature. God willing, this is an opportunity to reverse trends of social deterioration we're seeing nationally. Local pastors in Angliston are here today, and I want to ask you, can you please stand? Thank you very much. These are well-known pastors who are active and activated in their own right on a daily basis in Angliston. They are here in support to help us with this effort. I call on the community stakeholders and NGOs to join in this effort for true and full urban redevelopment and efforts to enhance quality of life. We cannot be simply simple voyeurs, watching as we are helpless, hapless, and in distress. We must take affirmative steps to effect social and economic responses so as to create and recreate healthy communities, and in particular for the protection of the most vulnerable, our children and the elderly. So again, I thank all who have come as we continue to discuss this effort. What you are seeing today is activated efforts to shift a paradigm that we are seeing across the board in this nation. We cannot simply sit back and accept it. I don't want to do it. So again, I thank you.
Good afternoon. Please allow me to stand on the established protocol. From the onset, I wish to commend the hardworking men and women of this great noble organization, the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And I also wish to commend the members of the public who continue to work alongside their police officers in this fight against crime. As we continue to say, we cannot do it alone. As mentioned by our minister, all categories of crime is down, with the exception of homicide and stolen vehicle. And we believe that the stolen vehicle is up because they are being used in commission of a number of these serious crimes. And the vehicles of choice that continue to be stolen, the Kia Jeeps and all the Japanese vehicles, the Cube, the Note, and the Honda Fit, all of the Japanese vehicles that are being used in the commission of these serious crime. The first week in this month, we noticed that the homicide began to climb. The first 5 days in this month, you had a homicide every other day. And I'm pleased to say that we are on top of the majority of those investigations. The latest one that occurred off Carmichael Road, Sunset Park, 2 individuals were charged this week and went to court. In that matter, we recovered a high-powered rifle that was used in the commission of that offense, and they were sent to court. The matter at Superwash, their bowl evening on the main strip, and then a young man who was killed in Flamingo Gardens off Carmichael who was holding the baby. We know now, based on our investigation thus far, that those 2 matters are connected. And they are connected by ballistic, so we believe that they are the same individuals who are responsible. We have following some significant lead with respect to that, to both homicides, the one on Blue Hill Road and the one in Flamingo Gardens. The one in Angliston, as the minister spoke about, the one at Wilson Trap. There's 2 individuals we arrested this week. The weapon used in that homicide, they were found in possession of that weapon. Detectives, as we speak, is speaking to those 2 individuals now. So we are well on the way in clearing these matters. I continue to say the detectives and the officers on the streets are doing an excellent job in solving these matters. The solvency rate is in the high 50s, but we want to be in position to prevent these matters from happening. And that is our focus. And to be able to partner and to do just that with a number of initiatives to ensure that it happens. When you look at the firearms, we have recovered over 360 firearms, the majority being high-powered rifles. And you could see it slowing down from the trafficking that is coming in. And that is because we are working in partnership with our U.S. counterpart, our local law enforcement, customs, immigration, the task force. They are doing an excellent job, almost double recovery to compare with this same time last year. Over 27,000 rounds of ammunition has been recovered this far. You could imagine 1 bullet represent a death. Be able to prevent these things from happening. And that is our focus. So we continue to say to you, members of the public, to partner with your police force. to partner with us to make our beautiful country a safe one. We move now to Angliston, as mentioned. The data always speak to us and direct us to how we should police and how we should execute. And we sat and we realized that Angliston, you are seeing now the crime continue to climb. What you will see on the screen here, that is South Central Division. Within South Central Division, Angliston, the constituency is in there. You see that area to the right. In South Central alone, you had 13 homicides in South Central. 8 of them happened in Angliston. You had 3 attempted murders, 5 sexual offenses, 27 armed robbery, 5 robberies, and then the break-in, house break-in, 14, stealing, that's gas tank and vehicles being broken into, and then the stolen vehicles that I mentioned, you had a total of 28 stolen vehicles. Go to the next slide. This is the concentration. You know, we continue to say hotspots. We want to move away from hotspots. It's hot people within the area because you have decent, respectable people lives in these areas. I'm from Baintown, and decent people came from Baintown. My mom still lives in Baintown, and I'm proud from where I came from. I was born in San Salvador, though. I came down to Baintown. You know. So this is the area right there. You're talking about Wilson Track and Montel Heights area. And they are where the homicides occurred this far within the Angliston area. And I'm going to show you how clustered and the statistics continue to speak to us, and that will be our concentration and remain focused. Consistency and to be able to sustain, we will accomplish. The hot persons in that area, in the hot spots, Lincoln Boulevard, Miami Street, Florida Court, Key West Street, and Washington Street. What you see here in the blue, they are just gunshot reports, and it's detected by our shot spotter. Officers respond, cases find, and our specialists connect some of these to different scenes. So you know that something is going on in those areas. You see all of those shots, and if you look at the streets, they are pretty much back to back. So what you think we should do? Saturate that area, man. Move in that area. Speak to the people living in that area. Someone will tell you that John Brown every night around midnight, he is firing off shots, testing his gun. Just firing off, or just a party, and individuals will just pull their weapon and fire shots. Next slide. We want to improve the quality of life within that area. And these are some of the stash houses that we have identified. This is an intelligence-led operation, that we know that firearms and drugs are hidden in these places. You could see the areas. Move. Go ahead. And there are some of the areas that we have identified, and there's a number of areas where grown bushes, vehicles are left unattended, abandoned, and a lot of criminal activities happen in those areas. So we want to go in there, and we are partnering. As mentioned, I'm so happy to know that we are partnering all government agencies, and that's what it's all about. We can't do it alone, and I'm so happy to know that all government agencies will be partnering us. Not only this, because we have identified something, but all areas. We will not let other areas suffer. So we are targeting all areas across the board. We want to assist in rebuilding. And when we clear that, we want some green spaces, all of those high growing bushes. We want to do some planting, some nice plant, and get the community involved. This way urban renewal will move in as they are doing now, and their presence are felt not only in Eggleston, but across the board. 13 constituencies across the board, different divisions that you will see urban renewal in action. We want to identify all of the drug peddlers, and mind you, it's not all in Eggleston or other areas, because you find individuals come from different areas, commit crime, and then move out. But persons living in those areas cannot, if man, look, I don't want you in my area. You go back in that area. Don't cahoot with them to commit crime. But we are going to identify those drug peddlers, those individuals who are selling drugs. And some persons who are on bail, who are being monitored, they are assisting in trying to fuel the crime situation. We're going to pay attention to them as well. We're going to have the drones in that area, and we are also going to map out properly going in and leaving Eggleston, and we're going to map it out with CCTV where there's not. We're going to map it out that we'll have it blanket. Blanket, we'll see who coming in and who leaving. So we will do the assessment with that. And again, I'm so happy to have the Department of Social Service, Environmental Health, Ministry of Health, Wellness, Ministry of Works, Housing, and Inland Revenue, and our domestic violence unit, our sexual unit, sexual offenses unit. We want to save our young females. We want to reach out to them. We want to save those young people. So we will be in there. Urban Renewal will have a lot of programs going on, girls and boys clubs, the elderly club, after school program, wellness, fitness program that is going on. We have a lot of initiative being driven by urban renewal. And you will see this initiative straight across the board. Again, as I say, the statistics speak to us. And as it speaks to us, we have to put a plan in action and execute for successful results. Let me just show you how the crime is clustered in Eggleston. Pull up the homicides in Eggleston for the year. That is the homicides in that area, 8. Pull up the armed robberies. This is a live mapping, armed robberies. That is all the armed robberies. Pull up the gunshots, the attempted murder. See how that looks? And this is one general area of concentration. Why we can't disrupt that? We will do just that. Again, as I said, the statistics speak to us, and we will do just that as a team to disrupt what is going on in Eggleston and across the board within this Bahama land. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, Minister Hannah Martin, Minister Monroe, and of course the Police Commissioner for a very detailed review of where things stand and of course what will happen going forward as we continue this work. At this point we will take a few questions. We've allotted about 15 minutes for that. I think I spotted about 15 reporters in the room. If you can give us your 5 reporters, pardon me, 15 minutes for questions. If you can give us your best question, I'll start with ZNS. If you just stand, identify yourself, please, and your question.
Afternoon, Devon Dehan here from ZNS. My question is specifically about starting the program here in, and Minister, who can answer this, starting the program in Eggleston. The Commissioner just said that there were only 13 homicides in Eggleston. We're we've reached about 90 for the year. I think the first set of homicides for the year would have been in Nassau Village. Why specifically Angliston and not a community like Nassau Village?
There is a focus across the board. As I said, we analyze all of the murders, all of the armed robberies, see where they're happening. We see a trend happening in Angliston. We see a trend. There was 3 persons who were shot just the night before the murder, the homicide. So we see a trend in that area based on our intel, and we want to prevent any other homicides in that area. But we still have focus on every hotspot, as we continue to mention, the Nassau Village, the Pinewood Garden, right in the inner city, Town. We still have a focused approach on all of those areas. But because of the intel and the trend that we are seeing in that area, we want to prevent anything else from happening in that area. But we still have a focused approach across the length and breadth of this Bahama land.
If I could direct it back to the clear hold build strategy, because the police are always policing, eh? That's the thing about them, they're policing the entire Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The emphasis on this clear hold build strategy and rolling it out in phases is that we talk too much about what we think is going to work. So when I say this is going to be rolled out and we're going to do research behind it, all of the programs that you could possibly think of, Angliston will see. And by doing this, you will get an idea of what works and what does not work. But it is not just a crime policing issue. It's about the police doing what they have to do. And that's clearing. But holding involves the community becoming involved and saying all of this good work has been done. Instead of letting the lot grow back up, as the commissioner says, let's green field it. And then the most important element of it that the minister, the MP, myself, because eventually it'll come to Freetown, that we're concerned about is the building, because you're talking about building society. The only thing it takes for these fellas to continue to succeed is for people, as Minister Martin says, to stand by and watch them. So the clear hold bill involves the police doing their thing, but the holding and the building, which is the back part of the strategy, as the Prime Minister has set out, involves then not letting it happen. They've always locked the people, you know. They may clear entire areas, but then people come back unless you hold what you've done and build on it. And that is what this strategy is about. Not just repetitively chasing bad guys, putting them up. It's about clearing it, returning it to the decent people who live in the area, and then making sure that we build on it. So that it's a whole thing. I know we like to focus on the crime part of it, and all of that is fine because you have to root out the cancer. But after that, you have to take other steps, and the clear hold bill is the other steps that are important. And Angliston is phase 1. It's not a pilot, it's phase 1, as it will be moved. And some of the things the police are doing are happening now in Freetown, are happening now in Baintown, are happening now in Nassau Village. But this specific, targeted, directed, motivated program is going to be phased into Angliston. And it's basically handing the community back to the decent, law-abiding people, which is what all Bahamian people want anyway.
Next question, please, on news.
Good afternoon. I have 2 questions, if that's okay. The first I wanted to ask, as it relates to the community, I know Minister Hannah Martin spoke to some pastors from the area being here in support, but are you able to speak a little bit or give a little more detail in terms of what the response has been like, I guess, from stakeholders, I guess, as it relates to consultation, I guess, in terms of their response to the initiative? Are they, I guess, more welcoming, I mean, outside of obviously the pastors that are present? And
Part of this process is going to involve more wide-based consultation. And so the pastors are institutional, they have churches, they're institutional, and then you have other stakeholders in the community who we have invited, but the consultation process will continue during all of this, because as the minister has indicated, it is more than simple police action. This is a strategy. I said we've been meeting for a long time, and the makeup of the committee is it's diverse in terms of ministerial representation, and so it will involve an array of components, which are social, economic, environmental, etc. And so as it moves along, we will ensure there is broad-based consultation on those broad-based issues. But what you're hearing now from the police is what they do. And so, we're inviting the community to work with the police to ensure that we work on getting guns, illegal firearms out of the community.
thank you. My next question is for the Commissioner. Commissioner, and this, I guess in the police's efforts as it relates to this program, you spoke a bit to saturation patrol or increasing police presence in this area as part of their plan, which is something that, we've heard before in terms of police saturating certain areas. So what, I guess, assurance can you give, or can you explain, I guess, how this will be, or what the police is doing now will be different from what has been done in the past? And I guess, what assurance can you give to members of the public who constantly say that the fear of crime is still high, that this will be the initiative that will break that trend and give them some kind of peace as they traverse the area?
You're absolutely correct. This will assist in moving the fear of crime within the community. I always believe in three things to remove the fear of crime from the public: response time, follow up on complaints. Once a complaint is made to the police station, follow up, moving the fear. And at nighttime, you could imagine, at nighttime you see the glare of the police light flash, and you say, boy, the police is in my neighborhood. That alone assists in moving the fear of crime and being consistent and sustained presence within the communities, and we're going to do just that. The saturation control will only boost up in that area, because you will have urban renewal who has vehicles. The government just bought a number of vehicles for them. So you have the police units that is in there, and then you have the urban renewal. So we are just boosting the patrols in those areas to assist with that consistent presence, to assist in moving the fear of crime, and we'll do just that, my brother.
Are there further questions? What is the cost of the first phase of the program? Could you just state your name? Oh, certainly now. From the Tribune, are you anyone able to say what is the cost of the first phase of this program?
It's difficult to price it, because when you're talking about clearing, you're talking about clearing lots. You're talking about bringing down homes, well, not homes, sorry, abandoned buildings. You're bringing down abandoned buildings, and you're doing other steps. Some of it, as the police have been saying, is already in their budget to do. So the gasoline in these police cars, we don't separately itemize that. The police manpower, we don't separately itemize that. But there are some things that you will be able to point to and say, this is driven by this. So the cost of bringing down abandoned buildings. You might find that when you identify the owner, the owner takes the building down, and then that won't be an expense. If the Ministry of Works condemns the building and the owner does not take it down, then that's a recoverable cost. But the most important thing that we can say is we have the commitment, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Economic Affairs, who is also on the task force, because there's no point having a task force without money people on the task force, eh? And so at the end of the day, we know that this is going to be a fluid process, and the cost of these things, what we will be, and the Attorney General also in terms of recovering costs is on the task for us. So we know that this is going to be a fluid process, but the reason we're calling this phase 1 is that we're making a commitment to Angliston that we will clear, hold, and build in your community. And so some things you just have to do because it's the right thing to do. And after all, security is what you elect governments for. And so at the end of the day, that is not something that we can say to you up front what the individualized cost would be. After a thing is completed, we'd be able to tell you, we paid X amount to demolish buildings. We were able to recoup this from the owners because they were condemned. And this came out of the public purse. We paid this to clear lots that wasn't recoupable.
And given that the focus of this program is resetting the youth mindset, are you able to say, I guess, what is the opinion of the state on programs like shock treatment? There's been like a lot of backlash as they say disappear to focus on like humiliation tactics. Would you say like programs like this would be used in this initial phase in Angliston?
Well, this program is delivering the community back to all of the residents from 1 to 100. Individualized programs that you can choose to participate in and will be available if you choose to participate in HYPE. You can choose to participate in HYPE. You can choose to participate in shock treatment. You can choose to participate in any one of the alphabet programs that the police have. But the bottom line to it is the choice will be yours and the opportunity will be offered. And many people have different views as to what is acceptable. And I'm not saying that we're going to get it. And some parents don't believe in corporal punishment. Some parents do. Some people don't believe in speaking harshly to people. Some people do. The object of this is going to let right-thinking people make decisions as they see is in their best interest.
Sorry, I'm not sure what was mentioned, but are you able, is there a timeline as to how long you intend to remain in the Angliston constituency before moving to another?
I think the Prime Minister gave in his remarks it's going to be intense. When you say clear, as the Commissioner is saying, having identified the stash houses, the derelict buildings, the overgrown lots, you should expect action starting Monday.
Right.
And that's the clear phase, and then the whole phase comes next, and the bill phase that the Member of Parliament is particularly interested in is the longest part of it. And actually, if you think about it, it's the continuing part of it.
Minister Munro, I know that during your remarks you had mentioned there are a number of implementations of certain programs and new departments, I guess, at the Bahamas Department of Corrections, such as the psychiatric sector of things. I know last night a 17-year-old girl attempted homicide at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Could you maybe say if you feel it's attempted suicide?
Suicide, not homicide.
Sorry, suicide. Can you maybe say if there are adequate resources now at the Bahamas Department of Corrections with the implementation of this new psychiatric
Unit.
department?
What I would say is this. When this government took office, there was no psychiatric unit at BDOCS other than psychiatrists from Sandilands visiting and seeing maybe 1 or 2 persons per visit. It was decided that it was the humane thing to do, to train persons from the nurses, the doctors who are there, and the actual correctional officers as to how you recognize somebody who has psychiatric issues. As we say, 98% of these people are going to come back out and live right next to you. 98% of them. And so an investment was made on having the American Correctional Association train staff. Now, I should tell you that one of the most troubling crimes that the commissioner sends in briefings to me is attempted suicide, not just at BDOCS. He sent me a report that a 14-year-old girl attempted suicide because her mother told her she wasn't worth anything, that a 21-year-old female in Abaco attempted suicide because she felt nobody loved her. That is also a very troubling statistic in this country. And so when we look at this program, the important thing about clear holding and building is when you return hope to people, it's a very big thing. For a 14-year-old to do that, for a 21-year-old to do that, that says a lot. The young lady in BDOCS, for the strongest of us, being deprived of your liberty and incarcerated is going to shock you to your core. And so we've made the investment. In the budget, you see we're making other investments in order to address the state of the institution because it is affecting the residents there. And I remind you again, 98% of them are going to be released to live among us again. And so when you hear the Prime Minister say prevention and rehabilitation are the 2 bookends that he constantly speaks on, that is a very compelling reason. The young lady would have been separated from the adult females. We have a freestanding male juvenile detention center. BDOCS is right now working on constructing the freestanding female juvenile detention facility for the first time again. And we hope to invite you to that opening, if not by the end of this year, by early next year. We have to very urgently address our surroundings. And coming back to Clear Hold Bill, this is an effort to address community by community, people surrounding. If the place is dirty, you have a mindset. If the place is clean, you have a completely different mindset, and that is what we are shooting for.
Final question, please.
Yeah, sorry. So from the presentation, it's, evident that the government is trying to build the trust of the public. I just wanted to know, is it possible that if we can get an update into the investigations of Michael Johnson, as the public trust is wavered in that regard?
As I indicated, stand by, the investigation is progressing very well.
Okay, final question, Devontae. How did you like to raise?
Thank you. My question was specifically about the green, turning the empty lots into green spaces. What is the time, Minister Monroe? I think you would be better able to answer this question.
All right.
The question is about the green spaces. You said that during this clear, hold, and build period, you will clear off those empty lots and turn them into green spaces. What is the timeline for that? Is there a budget line for that? And which organization organization will be responsible for turning those spaces into green spaces?
My recollection is that the community might decide that they desire a green space here. What's important about this exercise in Angliston, we are not coming in and imposing on the residents of Angliston what the residents of Angliston should want or have. We have sufficient people with long-standing connection to this area who can say to us, on this vacant space, why don't you build some low-cost housing? On this vacant place, why don't you have a community park, community farm? I've been with the Member of Parliament to one vacant lot that is perfect for a community center, and I hope to move that on for her shortly. And so it will depend on what the community wants. And so what Angliston may want may be different from what Nassau Village wants, from what Freetown wants. This is when you give the community back to the people, that's saying, this is yours. And what would you like to see here?
Isn't there a concern though that removing these trees could make the Bahamas hot? We know that this administration has been
Trees.
focusing on this administration's been focusing heavily on fossil fuels and climate change. That's something that the Prime Minister is trying to talk about.
Well, what I would say is this. When you talk about an overgrown lot where people are hiding high-powered automatic weapons, fully automatic weapons, where they're hiding their drugs, where in some instances it's an environment for women to be dragged in this area and sexually assaulted, you would be changing the nature of the foliage from bush and weeds to, if it's decided that it's a farm, regardless of global warming. The Minister of Housing, who is also on the task force, tells us that we need something like 15,000 more housing units. They have to be built somewhere. And there's no reason, and certainly the Member of Parliament for Angliston and myself advocates that there's no reason they can't be built right in our constituencies. That if you locate appropriate property, why ship people out of Angliston? Why ship people out of Freetown? Why not, if the community decides that this is appropriate, then you build it there. You need to listen to the people. That's the job of the government, after all.
So considering that there is a housing shortage, like you mentioned, the build part of this initiative will speak to that in terms of using the spaces that may have been torn down in the other buildings to build houses or maybe additional subdivisions to meet that demand?
Depending on the need of the community. I know the Minister of Housing, every time you talk to him, he's looking for places to build houses. Remember now, we build infinitely more houses than our predecessors because they ain't building none. So one is infinitely more. So he's constantly looking for places. There are advantages, and I'll state my case here. All the advantages for building in Freetown or Angliston, you already have the infrastructure, water, power. But if you're developing a new subdivision, you have to pay for. And so all of this around this table that the Prime Minister has put together, all of these pieces are there on a weekly, bi-weekly basis to work this out. We point across the table, I have some place where you could build some houses. I have some place where you could build some houses. It's building communities. I don't know, when I first came from Ragged Island, I lived in Angliston. And there was a different community feel back then. We need to get back to that.
Thank you very much, members of the press. Thank you, Prime Minister and Ministers, Police Commissioner, for that update today. We want to give a special thank you as well to our community leaders, pastors who are here and who are part of the crime fighting initiative. We look forward to informing you and updating you again in the very near future on the progress of this clear, hold, and build strategy. And with that, we bring our press briefing to a close. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.